So in the Star Wars universe, there's only one thing hated more than the Star Wars Christmas special, but that had the novella cartoon for Canadians who were proud of it. It's got to be Jar Jar Binks. Now, for the 5 people out there who don't know who Jar Jar Binks is, this is a fictional character from the Star Wars saga created by George Lucas and appeared in Episode 1 onward. A member of the Gungan race, Jar Jar appears throughout the Star Wars prequel trilogy as a major character in Episode 1, has a supporting role in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and as well Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, as well as having a role in the television series Star Wars The Clone Wars. It's the first fully computer-generated supporting character in a live-action film, voiced by Ahmed Best in most of his appearances, who also acted out of character with prosthetics prior to the CGI work. He has also appeared in various other media. Now, Jar Jar's primary role in Episode 1 was to provide comic relief for the audience. He was met with overwhelming dislike from both audiences and critics, has been recognized as one of the most hated characters in Star Wars and the history of film in general, with some commentators arguing that the character was based on stereotypes of black people, especially Jamaicans. The hate affected Best personally, who rejected the idea that the character was based on racist stereotypes, and he also considered suicide. Now, in 2010, Adult Swim released Robot Chicken Star Wars Episode 3, which included a sketch where Binks, voiced by Ahmed Best himself, revealed that he was a Sith Lord throughout the 6 films and had manipulated Palpatine himself. 5 years later, in 2015, a Reddit user posted a fan theory that Jar Jar was originally going to be revealed as a manipulative villain, but his plot point was removed due to the character's unpopularity. This theory gained popularity on the internet and was even encouraged by Best, who implied that it could have been partially true. The character's reception has changed as he's been championed by fans who had seen the prequels at the time of the release as children. He's also been defended by members of the prequels production team. Now, even before the release of The Phantom Menace, a lot of people knew what was going on and became the subject of significant media and popular attention. After the film's release, Binks became symbolic of what reviewers such as Brent Staples of the New York Times, David Edelstein of Slate, and Eric Harrison of the LA Times considered to be the creative flaws of the film. The character was widely rejected and often ridiculed by people who felt that Jar Jar was included in the film solely to appeal to children. I criticized him at first level with the introduction of the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. Bruce Handy of Vanity Fair wrote that Jar Jar has come to symbolize what many fans see as the faults of the prequel trilogy. Characters no one much cares about, a sense of humor geared towards the youngest conceivable audience members, an over-reliance on computer graphics, and storylines devoted to kinds of convoluted political machinations which wouldn't have been out of place in the adaptations of I, Claudius or Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, but which fit less snugly in films with characters like Jar Jar Binks. One fan, Mike J. Nichols, created and distributed free of charge a modified version of the film entitled The Phantom Edit, which cut out several scenes featuring what Nichols dubbed Jar Jar antics. The character is also lampooned in the episode of the television show South Park, and as well on the Fairly Odd Parents and The Simpsons. Now, of course, we talked about the parody Star Wars episode of Robot Chicken when he said he was a Sith Lord. Now, in the response to the criticism surrounding Jar Jar, George Lucas stated that he feels there's a section of the fan base upset that the movies are for children, but he don't want to admit that. I tend to agree. You got to be the Star Wars key audience. When I was growing up, was my age. I was only 12 when I went to see Star Wars. So you want to keep those in. You got to give them a little bit of lighthearted. It can't be dark all the time. Not like Part 3. There was a small group of fans that did not like the comic sidekicks. You want the film to be tough like the Terminator, and to get very upset and opinionated of anything that has anything to do with being childlike. Now, in July 2018, Best said the widespread criticism of his character again had led him to considering suicide. Fans felt sorry for and showed support for Best, feeling that toxic abuse is unacceptable. Among the group of people is the interpreter of Yoda, Frank Oz, who said that he enjoyed the character Jar Jar Binks so much. He once wrote on Twitter, "I love Jar Jar. I know I'll get raked over the coals for saying that, but I will just never understand the harshness of people's dislike of him. I do character work. He's a great character. Okay, go ahead, shoot. Give me all you got. But you'll never make me change my mind." Well, a lot of his characters that he voiced were irritating on The Muppet Show. I think Jar Jar Binks had a place in the universe, but if he would not be done with a kind of a black accent or a Jamaican accent, like it was done maybe kind of a, but the whole thing, he was a clumsy guy who had heroism in him, but you know, you got to understand, Anakin Skywalker in the first movie is under the age of 10. He's a preteen. He's falling in love with Padme. Even though the age difference. That creeps me out a little bit, by the way, once it gets to movie number 2, but we'll maybe talk about that in a future podcast. Now, in April 2019, during the annual Star Wars Celebration event, ahead of the 20th anniversary panel for The Phantom Menace, George Lucas named Jar Jar as his favorite Star Wars character. Well, he made billions of dollars. Now, in an article for Wall Street Journal, film critic Joel Morgenstein described the character as a Rastafarian stepping fetchit on platform hoofs, crossed annoyingly with Butterfly McQueen. Yeah, you're using all the cliches in the same sentence. Well, good on you. Legal scholar Patricia Williams argued that many aspects of Jar Jar's characterization was reminiscent of the blackface archetypes in minstrel shows, while academic Paul J. Ford suggested the character is a laid-back clown character which utilized stereotypes of Afro-Caribbean people. Now, George Lucas has said about these criticisms are made by people who obviously never met a Jamaican. How in the world could you take an orange amphibian and say that he's a Jamaican? Ahmad Best also rejected such claims, stating that Jar Jar has nothing to do with the Caribbean. Now, get this. On December 19, 2010, Adult Swim released Robot Chicken, Star Wars Episode 3. This was a comedy parody of Star Wars. In the first sketch, titled The Emperor's Back, Emperor Palpatine feels remorse for his actions and calls Binks, voiced by Ahmad Best himself, on the telephone, apologizing to him for manipulating him to granting Palpatine emergency powers in the Senate during Attack of the Clones. Binks pretends to accept his apology, feigning innocence, but after he hangs up, he reveals he was in fact a Sith Lord named Dark Jar Jar, who only pretended to be manipulated by Palpatine and actually manipulated Palpatine himself. The sketch was in reference to a popular in-joke among Star Wars fans. 5 years later, in late October 2015, a Reddit user by the name of Lumpa Waru, the name of Chewbacca's son, published a detailed theory speculating that Binks was originally written as a major antagonist of the series, a manipulative, prominent collaborator of Palpatine, before being written off from his major villain's role due to the character's negative reception. The theory was related to an earlier interview with actor Best, where he claimed that Jar Jar had been displaced from the story's main focus due to the backlash, implying at the same time that the hate received by the character was not entirely unintentional. Now, that's just, again, speculation, but I think J.J. Abrams, who did direct 2 installments of the franchise's sequel trilogy after his buyout by Disney, personally approved of the theory about the villainous Jar Jar. He described Lumpa Ru's argumentation as an unbelievably lengthy analysis and is very seriously thought away as to why it's obviously true he's evil. Now, in 2019, when questioned about it, Best stated that only Lucas could answer, but he confirmed the theorist's idea of Jar Jar's antics being actually disguised fighting style, akin to drunken boxing, revealing that he based his performance on Jackie Chan's role in a 1978 film Drunken Master. He said the dark Jar Jar theory caught it. I never thought anybody would see that. Now, it's also referenced through the years. Now, since the release of the movie, many people who have worked on Star Wars films and viewers have defended Jar Jar. Now, filmmaker Lucas again defended the character by clarifying that Star Wars films were made for 12-year-old children and up. He said that A New Hope was intended for children, and yes, it pretty well is. I saw that. Now, Habib Zagripur, who did the special effects on the movie, is a close friend or collaborator with various people on the West Coast, and include my cousin Derek Hamilton, the actor. I think he could state this as well as saying, the pod racing was done from like a child's perspective. Now, Liam Neeson, who was a co-star with Jar Jar in the first movie, said, "I know a lot of fans and critics didn't like it. Ahmad Best, who played Jar Jar, received a lot of criticism to the point where it really hurt his career. And I have to say that when he's making that movie, Best as Jar Jar and with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, he was probably one of the funnest and most talented guys I ever worked with. I remember calling my old ex-agents and saying, listen, I think I just worked with new Eddie Murphy, and I still believe it." Now, again, whether you like Jar Jar or not, I see him as just like a background father, because every interesting action movie got to have a piece of what do you call of lightness. But Phantom Menace, like episode 1, is a kids movie. Part 2, it's more teenage, and part 3 is adult as they come. You don't kill a bunch of young Jedi in cold blood and say that's a kids movie. I think by the middle half of part 2 into part 3, it's like it is the trilogy. So you watch as a young kid, as a 12-year-old, and you got to watch it together. Because the first movie, ladies and gentlemen, is more of a children's movie version of Star Wars than anything else. And, if they're going to have a certain plot point, you got to have a player that's likable for that audience. And Liam Neeson was unknown to maybe everybody under age of 15. Ewan McGregor, yes, he was known, but not to the point he was a few years before, doing a lot of independent movies. But Jar Jar Binks, again, it opened it up for the young kids, and like I said, but the merchandising for Jar Jar just tanked. I lived through it. Actually, my wife is in New York City this weekend, and she knows some Jar Jar Binks watches. I think they were from McDonald's or whatever, as a promo gift for whatever it was, or Burger King, wherever it was. They're quite interesting. It's quite an era, because Jar Jar from far away, he looks black. He doesn't look orange to me, so maybe that's why it was all put together. But if you're an adult watching the first Star Wars, like episode 1, not the first Star Wars, but technically episode 4, which is episode 1, anyway, it comes along across and step and fetch it. But, what you going to do? It's George Lucas. He runs the world, Next question. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're doing here, we're a Star Wars podcast, and if your thoughts on Jar Jar, let me know. Again, no negative comments, please. When you're asked to play a role, you got to do it, and that's how it goes. So thanks for listening, and don't forget, Major League Baseball playoffs. Stay tuned. If you can deal with 12 hours a day of baseball, you're better than me. Have a good one.